Okay, so once you've got your intent together, you've got your audience sensibility sorted out, you know your content, you know your tone, you know your pace. Okay, so the very next thing is to begin writing. So writing really consists of points. Okay, and I want you to start thinking of writing as a series of points. Now, these points can be organized in sentences or in paragraphs or whatever, but essentially you're making, in business writing especially, you're making a series of points. And it's these points that move what I call the narrative forward. So let's just look at an example of the kind of narrative you might be writing. Let's say you wanted to write a review of the latest Star Wars movie, The Force Awakens. You know your intent. Your intent is to persuade people, say, to go see this movie. Maybe your audience is Rotten Tomatoes, a bunch of people who just go there to to look at which films to go and watch. You've decided that your tone is going to be chatty and informal. You know, you're not going to be too kind of overly serious. But so you're now concerned. Now, what's my content going to be? What am I going to say about this film? So I would recommend at the beginning of this writing process to just focus on just jotting down what I would call relevant points. So you want to just don't worry too much about the order at this stage. Just start to say, well, these are just things that are worth saying, or that I feel moved enough to say. So this sort of will give you the stuff to work with. So take it as a kind of a process with various steps. And the first thing is just these are just stuff that I think are worth saying. What might you say in the review? Now, a spoiler warning if you haven't seen it. I'm not really going to give too much away, but if you really don't want it, then skip this. But I think it will be okay. Now, let's say, what might you say in this review? And this is not necessarily my view of the film, by the way. This is just for purposes here. Let's say you wanted to say that I love this film. Okay, that's one thing you want to say. I'd watch it again. The characters were well-rounded. The dialogue was snappy. There was a particularly powerful moment when Kylo Ren, if I'm pronouncing that right, the bad guy, says, "Nothing will stand in our way. I will finish what you started." So there's this powerful moment in that film that you want to mention. The pace was relentlessly fast, making the film gripping throughout. That's another point. Another one is Han Solo goes from being unconcerned about his family to being deeply committed. That's something that struck you as a good aspect of character development. Most characters grew into something different by the end. The opening scenes were riveting, fast-paced. Some parts were confusing, some parts of the film. Characters were more interesting than in the original Star Wars. I know some people aren't going to agree with that. Rey's character, the female character, was underdeveloped. There was no clear character arc. Let's say that was your view. The film was full of twists and turns that keep you guessing all the way to the very end. The conversation between Han Solo and Kylo Ren on the bridge was one of the film's most dramatic scenes. The film began with an intriguing scene. An old man gives a map of Luke Skywalker's whereabouts to a rebel pilot. The special effects were magnificent. The plot reuses many plot elements from the original Star Wars movie, and the 3D made you feel like you were actually there. So these are a bunch of things you might want to say, and I made it extensive so you can get a feel for a narrative. Now, you'll agree, hopefully, that this is extremely badly disorganized. There are points repeated. There are kind of stuff about character you're saying in various different parts. But you've basically just said these are the things I want to say. It's not organized yet. All we've done really is just map out the territory of what we're going to say, and that's the first thing you do. This is the territory. And you may change it later. You might say, well, actually, I don't want to make this point. Once you begin to organize it, you start making new judgments. We've listed points. They're all points, though, right? And that's fine. Now, that's the first stage, okay, of kickstarting a narrative. You just said relevant points. And what we're going to look at next is how to organize these points into a narrative, and that's the next lecture.